2014 is nearly over.
So whose tech products reign supreme? Welcome to Vertical Hold, the tech show where we channel surf through the headlines in search of the big picture. I'm Adam Turner and I'm joined by a jolly fat man with a beard, Alex Kidman. Alex, what's new in tech?
Motorola's managed to snag the crown of what will probably be the last smartphone released in Australia in 2014 with the recent release of the Moto X. The 16 gig variant will sell for $749 in basic black or $789 if you want the snazzy wood finish. In other smartphone related news, Samsung's announced that the Gear VR headset for the Galaxy Note 4 has slipped into 2015 in terms of Australian availability.
NBN has finally signed deals with Telstra and Optus to acquire their HFC cable networks along with Telstra's copper network and roll them into the new look NBN. With these deals locked away, we should now see a deal with iiNet to acquire access to the former neighbourhood cable networks in Mildura, Geelong and Ballarat.
The Pirate Bay is down, and then it's back up again. You can't keep a good, or possibly evil, torrent tracker down, but the Swedish authorities have certainly had a red-hot go raiding the Pirate Bay and shutting its Sweden-based servers down. That hasn't stopped a bunch of imitator Pirate Bay sites cropping up, including one in Costa Rica. Now, based on where that is, that would make them, wait for it, Pirates of the Caribbean. God, who writes this stuff? Oh, that's right, me.
Telstra has received a $100,000 fine from the ACCC for full-page advertisements for the iPhone 6 which understated the full cost of the phone. While the true charges were in the fine print, the consumer watchdog still slapped them with a significant fine. Telstra, while it argues that it didn't do anything wrong, has agreed to pay the fine and also change its advertisements.
So Adam, the Pirate Bay is both up and down. It's Schrodinger's Pirate Bay.
Yes, it is.
But will anyone ever actually squash pirate sites?
No, because it doesn't work that way. It really is a Hydra situation where you cut off one head and two grow back. There's a dozen different versions of the Pirate Bay itself. There are competing services. You can block them, you can take them down, they'll pop up somewhere else. There are proxy filters to get around them. There are RSS aggregators you can turn on your VPN. There's no way that you are going to completely wipe this stuff out, and the people who are trying to must know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's both a technological arms race as well as a kind of societal thing. As I mentioned in the news report, the Pirate Bay in Sweden gets taken down, so Pirate Bay clones pop up elsewhere. And it's not as though the Pirate Bay was the only place that was torrenting stuff anyway.
And it's not as though BitTorrent is the only way to get stuff either. There's so many ways to do this. Yeah. It's interesting that I think Brandis was saying that it's a numbers game. They know they're not going to stamp out 100% of piracy. They just want to put a big dent in it. But the thing is that that's not going to last for long. They might think, oh, using a VPN or using a proxy server is too complicated for your average person. But a few years ago, using a BitTorrent client was too complicated for your average person. People learn what they need to know to do what they want to do. And school kids already use these tricks.
Equally, I think this stuff also gets simplified over time.
Yes,
if you actually ask the average person, hey, how does the BitTorrent protocol work? They'd scratch their heads and scratch their backsides and have no idea at all. But if you ask them, how does your BitTorrent client work, they'd say, oh, I click on this, and then the stuff starts downloading.
And
whatever the next sharing or piracy thing that comes along is, invariably someone will write a simple front end for it, and that's what people will use. And now it's time to kick off the 2014 Vertical Hold Awards. All prize winners, which is to say no prize winners, will be taking home one of these precious antique trophies. Instead, they get to take home a warm feeling of satisfaction, or in some cases, a little bit of self-loathing. Now, on with the awards. And our first category, which is a really hotly contested one, we had to debate this long and hard, and it's for the best smartphone of the year. Adam?
And the winner is LG's G3. Now, Alex, that's a bit of a controversial one. Why did you back the G3? The man has his big prop.
I've always got a prop. Look, okay, the G3 wins it for me because 2014 saw a lot of really good smartphones. As I said, this was a pretty hotly debated one between the two of us. And there are some really good smartphones out there. But by and large, what we saw in smartphones in 2014 was a lot of evolution, was a lot of smartphones that were a bit better than the one that came before, a bit faster, maybe a little bit improved. And of course, I mean, that's what you want in a base level. LG with the G3, I think, really pushed themselves that bit harder. You look at the G2 to the G3 and it's a huge leap because the G3's got a much better screen, and they're basically first to a market in our part of the world with a screen of that quality. They've got a really good camera. It's a really good Android operating system. Now, having said that, yeah, look, there are a few things within the G3 that I'm not so wild on. That back power button is still fairly contentious.
Doesn't work for me either. Yeah, it does not work for me. Yeah.
And the Bluetooth could be a little bit better, but look, every smartphone has its little flaws. The G3, though, I think represented LG stepping up and saying, yes, we can make a premium smartphone that competes with the Samsungs, that competes with the Apples, that competes with the Nokias. And what's more, we can make one that's actually a little bit cheaper again. And given the trend for smartphones this year to actually go up in price, not down, that's a really welcome thing. And for that reason, I think, yeah, the G3 absolutely carries it as the best smartphone of 2014.
And they've also looked around at what the competition are doing and tried to bring together some of the best features. Like, it has a removable SD card, it has a removable battery, it has wireless charging. You will find some of those things amongst its Android competitors, but not very often that you will find all of them. And even Android itself, they haven't done the Samsung thing of tweaking the hell out of Android till you want to answer the thing with a brick. They've kept it nice and clean and simple, put in a few useful things, but haven't gone over the top. And altogether, it's a really nice package. Even if you may say, I like the Samsung because of this, or I like the HTC because of this, as an overall package, it's pretty hard to beat.
We probably should point out that if you do own a Samsung phone, we don't actually advise you answer it with a brick. You will void your warranty.
Yeah.
On to our next award category. And again, it's a big, hotly contested area, and that's for the best tablet of 2014. Over to you, Adam.
The envelope, please. And the winner is Apple's iPad Air 2. Wow. Yay! Now, Tim Cook couldn't be here today to accept the award, so Alex, you're going to accept it on his behalf. What would you like to say? What was so great?
I feel I can step in for Tim in this place, although clearly he put a bit more work into it. But there's a few reasons why we think the Air 2 is still the tablet to buy in 2014. Some of that does admittedly rest on the iPad tablet ecosystem. Obviously, Android's got an ecosystem for its tablet apps, and Microsoft has via Windows 8 as well. But the iOS ecosystem for tablet apps is still that leap ahead of the competition. They're still that little bit more refined. There's still that little bit better place where in Android you'll still find things that scale up weirdly or don't work well on one tablet or another. Apple's iron grip on what the Air 2 can do meant that, yeah, basically from day one it just worked, and that's kind of what you want out of a tablet. But there's a bit more to the iPad Air 2 than that, isn't there, Adam?
Well, I was really amazed at how much of a step up it was from the last one in terms of performance. And a lot of that comes from the fact that it's the first iGadget to have 2 gig of RAM under the bonnet. But you'd think after the original iPad Air, you could, relax a little bit, sit back, make the next one, the iPad Air 1S, and then the next year come out with a big one. But this thing thumps its predecessor like 60-70% in the benchmarks. It is ridiculously thin. It is thinner than the iPhone 6. They really have gone all out. You'd think you'd hold something back. I got no idea what the hell they're going to do next year because they really didn't hold back on this.
More batteries in it.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what they should
Make
do
the damn thing this much thicker and put a bigger battery in it. It is one of the things where it's almost become a laughing point amongst it is a laughing point amongst competitors that the battery could be better in these things. The iPad actually stands up better, we'll say, than some of the iPhones do. But yeah, there really is an opportunity here. Don't shave off a millimeter. Give us an extra couple of hours of battery life. But all up, yeah, it is a phenomenal effort when you would have thought that maybe they could hold back for a year and then deliver something like this next year.
On to our next category, and it's for Notebook of the Year. Notebook. Unfortunately, this truly ancient, frankly, seriously heavy model is not up for contention. And that's because, Adam, the winner was...
We've tallied the votes and getting a grand total of 2 votes out of 2. Bit controversial, Microsoft Surface Pro 3. Now, how does a hybrid thing win Best Notebook, Alex?
Well, I think the reason that a hybrid thing, and I'm not sure that Microsoft would be particularly happy with this.
I haven't seen it written on their advertising. Hybrid thing, says Adam Turner for the City Morning Herald.
Maybe they should pick up on that. They seem to like picking up journalist quotes for their advertising. The best hybrid thing, according to tech journalists. But leaving that aside for a second, the thing is, 2014 saw lots and lots of hybrids because there was only so far that you could take, you know, that thin Ultrabook model, because they wanted to make sure that they didn't give up a lot of that market to tablets, because they still wanted to make money out of these things. And whilst there's that fierce battle with Chromebooks and Windows 8 with Bing kind of things, that's still not making anyone real money.
No.
The Surface Pro 3 wins it because in terms of what you want to do with a laptop, in terms of productivity as well as enjoyment, it's easily the best of the bunch. It's premium priced, but you get those premium features. It's really nicely built. It feels good in the hand. That screen is great, and it's really powerful underneath. There were other competitors, like Lenovo's Yoga Pro 3, for example. Beautiful looking thing, but because of that Core M processor underneath, it's not quite up to the specs of the Core I's that you get with a good Surface Pro 3. And that means the Surface Pro 3 is the one that I would ultimately buy.
The great thing about the Surface Pro 3 is it knows exactly what it wants to be. They're not playing the iPad anymore. They're not trying to out-iPad the iPad. They very clearly aim it as a notebook replacement. They target the MacBook Air. They've actually made the screen bigger on this thing. It's more, and changed the aspect ratio a little bit, so it's now like an A4 page. It knows what it wants to be. They've listened to feedback. They've improved it in pretty much every area. Even from the first to the second, there are improvements again. The kickstand, the way the keyboard works, the screen, everything about it, they're really listening to customer feedback and nailing what it is you want from a hybrid device. Because hybrids were novelties for quite some time. They're getting past the novelty and saying, let's actually make this work as a device where you might go, you know what, I don't need a notebook and a tablet anymore. And they really have done a beautiful job.
And now we come to the award that, frankly, nobody wants to win. This is for the worst product or tech decision of the year. And whilst we had fierce debates about the other categories, this one was the easiest one to pick. We were in total 100% agreement from day one. Yes. Adam, who's taking home the brown gong?
I don't have to check the envelope for this one. It is definitely the decision to kill the NBN. The NBN is dead. It is in no way, shape or form anything like what it started out, not only under Labor, but also what it started out under this government as well. How badly have they changed it from the original concept, Alex? What's gone wrong here?
Well, let's see. I mean, okay, you can talk about the technology not being up to scratch for it to be a national broadband network. Yes. And I think that actually does carry. We're going to rely on what is actually going to be some identically priced copper to what we were going to pay before, because they have admittedly finally signed their agreement with Telstra and with Optus to take over the HFC, great stuff that we had in the 90s, which they're going to have to spend money on upgrading.
A lot of money if they do it right.
Which they're going to have to spend a heck of a lot of money on upgrading till they finally rip it out and put actual fibre in, which, you know, might, maybe, perhaps be the way to go. But even leaving the technology aside, they've made so many other decisions contrary to what they were elected for. They've dumped the timing on when it's actually going to appear for the majority of Australians. They've dumped minimum speed guarantees in both directions. I mean, uploads is the thing that people always ignore, but it's gone now.
Yeah.
They've dumped uniform pricing. So if you're in the bush, not only are you going to get it later and slower, you're also going to pay more for it.
Yeah.
And they may subsidise that, but that just means, well, great. That means the big telcos are going to get money out of the government, out of the taxpayer pockets, from here to eternity. Whoopee! That sounds like a great plan to me. Well, no.
The original idea of the NBN was not to give us faster internet. That was what we were going to get, but that was not the point. The point of it was to start again, a level playing field. Everybody gets the same, and also there's not one ISP, one telco that can call the shots and hold the country to ransom. All of that has been lost. The thing's now going to be a fragmented mess. You've got a mix of technologies. You never know what you will get, what your neighbour will get. No one can build services now knowing that there is a group of users.
Because you lose that beautiful network effect where you can say, well, 97% of the population actually have a fibre link. They can do this stuff.
So services that you might have built knowing that 97% of us or 93% of Australians could get a certain speed, forget about it now. So we're going to get even less value out of it than we would have. It's now going to be at the mercies of different... they're even letting people build competing infrastructure and then saying you can build competing infrastructure to the NBN, but then you have to share it. Now, we've had that situation where one group owned the copper and shared it, and how did that work out for us? Not so good. So, Alex, it's not an end-of-year show without tech predictions. What do you think is going to be big in 2015?
Well, Adam, through a careful process of reading the tea leaves, I've come to the conclusion that the or one of the big things in 2015 is going to be wearables. Now, we all know that I love a wearable. I'm a big fan of them. But the thing with wearables in 2014 is that they've been incredibly immature, and I don't mean that they've been going around giving each other wedgies. I mean that the market for them has been immature, and exactly, thank you, you know that one well, obviously. I mean, the market for them has been really immature in that if you bought into a wearable, you were generally buying into a single ecosystem. So you were buying any of Samsung's endless array of Gear watches, which curiously only seem to work with Samsung Android devices, or you were buying, or you were thinking of buying, because you can't buy them yet, an Apple Watch, which does exactly the same thing but on the iOS side. Or you were buying a fitness band that only worked with that fitness band's app and didn't really pass data around. And I think what we'll see in 2015 is we'll see an evolution of that model, and we're starting to kind of see it already, but we'll see an evolution of that model where we'll actually get wearables that talk to each other. We'll get wearables that share data. We'll get wearables that you might want to have on your wrist for more than a year or two, even if you do change phone models, because you know, right, well, it's still tracking my fitness or my heart rate, or it's still giving me my appointments or whatever, and it doesn't matter that I change phones because my data will travel with me. And that's where wearables will really start to become an integral part of more people's lives, as opposed to what they are at the moment, which is a bit of a geeky obsession. I can't deny that. I love wearables, but I think 2015 is the year where wearables can really start to emerge. So Adam, if you gaze into your personal crystal ball, not too deeply mind, what emerges as one of the big tech trends that you think is going to be huge in 2015?
I think smart home gear and the Internet of Things is definitely the thing to watch. I think this is the year when it's going to go from bits and pieces to being more of a unified solution. The big one to watch is Google. It's about 12 months since Google acquired Nest, which is the smart home thermostat, and they're now starting to do stuff with that. Recently, you can now control your Nest thermostat with Google Now. This doesn't work in Australia yet, but it does put pressure on all the vendors to lift their game. We've seen people like Belkin fleshing out their ecosystem with smart light bulbs, and it's the plumbing that puts it all together which is going to be big. I know that If This Then That, which is an online service which lets smart devices talk to web services, they've got some big announcements planned for CES. I think that this CES is going to be all about wearables and Internet of Things. Last year sort of Ultra HD television stole the spotlight, but I think wearables is what it's going to be. Sorry, wearables as well, but smart gear and Internet of Things, but not bits and pieces, but making it all work together. And that's the secret to this, is not just offering you a smart gadget, but a way to tie all your smart gadgets together into a smart home.
And that just about wraps it up for another episode and another year of Vertical Hold. But don't worry, we'll be back in 2015.
Thanks for watching, and if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe.